The relentless Nevada sun beat down on my weathered leather steering wheel, turning it into a furnace. Sweat beaded on my forehead, stinging my eyes despite the air conditioning struggling to keep up. For weeks, the open highway had been my companion, a steel ribbon stretching endlessly across the canvas of the American landscape. I was a nomad on a self-imposed pilgrimage, crisscrossing the country in my trusty motorhome, Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt wasn't just a vehicle, it was my rolling sanctuary. Its boxy exterior housed a surprisingly comfortable living space complete with a small kitchen, a plush bed in the back, and a driver's cabin that felt more like a familiar armchair than a mere seat. But tonight, even the familiar hum of the engine and the gentle sway of the vehicle couldn't soothe the unease that gnawed at my gut. The radio sputtered, spewing static instead of the usual country tunes I cranked up to drown out the loneliness. Even the typically vibrant desert sunset seemed muted, awash in an unsettling orange glow as if a giant bruise was forming on the horizon. The vast emptiness that had felt liberating for weeks now stretched before me like a hungry maw, swallowing the last vestiges of daylight. My trusty map app, usually my dependable guide, offered a meager consolation prize, a rest stop 10 miles ahead. The prospect of a restroom and a chance to stretch my cramped legs sounded like paradise. 10 miles of solitude seemed manageable, a mere blip on the vast canvas of my journey. The setting sun finally dipped below the horizon, plunging the landscape into an inky blackness. The only light came from the twin beams of Thunderbolt's headlights, slicing through the darkness like a surgeon's scalpel. The map app announced my arrival at the rest stop with a cheery chime that felt jarring in the oppressive silence. Pulling off the highway, I scanned the area. The rest stop consisted of a single, squat building with a faded blue sign advertising restrooms and a weary-looking coffee pot. Thunderbolt crunched to a halt on the gravel parking lot, the sound echoing unnaturally in the stillness. I switched off the engine, the sudden silence pressing in on me like a physical force. Where were the usual sounds of a rest stop, the rumble of a truck engine, the muffled chatter from the restroom, even the distant hum of conversation? There was nothing. A strange sensation, a prickling at the back of my neck, urged me to keep driving. The urge to put as many miles as possible between me and this unsettling emptiness grew stronger with every passing second. But fatigue was a siren song, its call too powerful to resist. One quick snooze, I told myself, enough to shake off the jitters and I'll be back on the road. With a sigh, I unlatched the door and stepped out into the cool desert night. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of creosote and dust. The building loomed before me, its windows dark and uninviting. A shiver racked my body, a coldness that had nothing to do with the night air. For a fleeting moment, I considered sleeping in the driver's seat, but the cramped space held no appeal. Exhaustion finally won the battle against apprehension. I collapsed onto the surprisingly comfortable bed in the back of Thunderbolt, the rhythmic rumble of the engine lulling me into a restless sleep. Dreams flickered on the edges of my consciousness, a kaleidoscope of fragmented images, endless stretches of highway, the harsh beauty of the desert, and a nagging sense of unease. Then, a sound pierced the dream world, shattering the fragile peace. A dull thump. It wasn't the familiar thrum of the engine, but a deeper, more unsettling sound. It came from above, like someone was pounding on the roof with a heavy object. My eyes snapped open, heart hammering against my ribs like a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Disoriented, I fumbled for the overhead light, its harsh glare momentarily blinding me. Sweat prickled my skin. What was that? Had I imagined it? My rational mind tried to offer explanations, a loose piece of metal rattling in the wind, a branch from a nearby tree scraping against the roof. But a deeper, primal part of me refused to be soothed. The sound had an undeniable rhythm, a deliberate slowness that sent chills down my spine. Holding my breath, I strained to listen. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Just when I began to believe I had imagined the whole thing, it started again. Thump, thump, thump. Each thud resonated through the vehicle, vibrating through my bones. Fear, cold and sharp, iced my veins. I fumbled for my phone, the familiar weight a small comfort in the growing darkness. The screen displayed 2:37 a.m., the witching hour. Panic clawed at my throat. I had to get out of there, but where could I go? Outside, under the vast expanse of the star-dusted night sky, with who knows what lurking in the shadows, or stay put, trapped in this metal box with whatever was making that horrifying racket on the roof. Suddenly, the rhythmic thumping stopped. In its place, a new sound emerged, a soft, scraping noise. It seemed to be moving from the front of the vehicle towards the back, where I lay frozen in terror. Throwing off the covers, I scrambled out of bed, adrenaline coursing through my veins. My bare feet slapped against the cool floor as I crept towards the front, every muscle taut, every nerve on edge. Driven by sheer terror, I sprinted towards the driver's side. I fumbled for the key fob, my fingers clumsy in the darkness. The faint click of the unlock button felt like a gunshot in the oppressive silence. I didn't waste any time fumbling with the seatbelt. My eyes darted from the rearview mirror to the windshield, searching for any sign of movement. There, in the sliver of reflection offered by the rearview mirror, I saw it, a monstrous silhouette, vaguely humanoid in shape, its movements jerky and unnatural. It was crouched on the back of the vehicle, its claws scraping against the fiberglass. The sight of that monstrous figure, bathed in the pale moonlight, stole the breath from my lungs. Terror, raw and unadulterated, flooded my veins. There was no time for deliberation. This thing, whatever it was, wasn't interested in conversation. I slammed the gear shift into drive, ignoring the engine's startled sputter, and slammed my foot on the gas pedal. The engine roared to life, a sound that felt like a battle cry in the oppressive silence. Tires squealed in protest as Thunderbolt lurched forward, throwing me back against the seat. Gravel sprayed behind me as I tore out of the rest stop, the meter building shrinking in the rearview mirror like a forgotten nightmare. My eyes strained to pierce the darkness, searching for any sign of civilization, a distant farmhouse, a lone streetlight, anything that offered the promise of safety. Finally, a flicker of light appeared on the horizon. It was faint at first, barely a pinprick in the endless expanse of darkness, but as I drove closer, the light grew brighter, transforming into a beacon of hope. A gas station, its neon sign blazing like a welcoming message, materialized from the gloom. Relief washed over me in waves, so intense it almost made me dizzy. With a screech of tortured brakes, I slammed to a halt at the pump, the vehicle rocking on its suspension. Scrambling out, I ignored the protesting ache in my legs and sprinted towards the brightly lit gas station building. The familiar clink of the convenience store door opening sounded like a joyous symphony. Human voices, the hum of refrigerators, the smell of stale coffee, all these mundane sounds filled me with an overwhelming sense of security.